Hey, seventh graders, welcome to Module 8, using the percent proportion. Our learning target is you will be able to use equations and proportions to find unknown amounts related to percentages. Percentages are used frequently in real life and can be solved by setting up a percent proportion. The equation is below. So in the pink box, we can see a percent over 100 will be equivalent to a part to whole relationship. This is a proportion because it's two equivalent rates or two equivalent fractions or ratios. So our strategies are, the first one, we can use the percent proportion by inserting the information we know from the situation or story problem, and then solving the unknown by using the proportion. And the second strategy is knowing that the cross products of proportions are equivalent. We can solve it by this method called cross multiplying and dividing. And I'll show you what that looks like in some examples. Example 1, the 7th grade class held an end of the year dance. Of the 300 7th graders, 246 decided to attend. What percent of the 7th grade class attended the end of the year dance? Okay, first, let's talk about our unknown. And our unknown is the percent, because that's the question that's being asked of us to solve. What percent of the 7th grade class attended? Okay, so in my percent proportion, the percent is the X or the mystery. And then the other parts I know because I know percents are always out of 100. And now I'm thinking, what's the part and what's the whole? Well, the part are those who attended, 246. The whole is the total amount of 7th graders there are. So 300. Okay. Now I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this off to the side. And I'll show you how we can use this to use proportions to solve. Like I mentioned last week, I am always going to look for friendly relationships, like friendly numbers, and how they kind of relate to each other. So those patterns that we've been talking about. I noticed that 300 to 100, we could divide by 3. That's the division pattern there. And then I know if that's happening, then the same relationship has to be happening in the numerator for them to be equivalent. So to solve for X, I will take 246 and divide it by 3 to figure out the unknown. So 3 can go into 24 8 full times, which is 24, nothing left over, and I drop the next one down, and 3 can go into 6 2 times. So my unknown number is 82. What does 82 represent? It represents 82% of the 7th graders went to the dance. Now, connecting it to last week, we learned how we could take a fraction and change it to a percent, right? Or a decimal. And so I don't want you to forget about that because that tool can be useful here too. Our fraction was 246, which is the part, 300, which is the whole, right? Representing the 7th graders who went. And if you remember to convert this to a percent, well, we could just do the numerator divided by the denominator and solve it that way. And that would give us 0.82 or 82 hundredths, right? Which would be the same as 82%. You could also think of it that way as well. Example 2, a farmer decides to sell 32 pounds of his small 96-pound potato crop. What percent of the crop did he sell? So our unknown is what percent again. We know that percents are out of 100. And now let's think about the part and the whole. What he sold was the part. He sold part of his crop, 32 pounds. And his total was 96 pounds. And here's our percent proportion. And now it's up to us it's up to us to decide what strategy to use. I'll take this opportunity and show you the cross multiplying and dividing method. Since 96 and 100 aren't super friendly, so cross multiplying and dividing means whatever the knowns are that are diagonal from each other, so that's a cross, right? Cross multiply, you will multiply those. Then with that product, you will divide by the other known. So this means I will do 32 times 100, which is 3,200. And I take that product and divide it by 96 to give me the percent. And 3,200 divided by 96 is 33.3 repeating. And remember, this represents the percent. And don't forget, you could also just do 32 divided by 96, right? And it gives you a decimal. And then you can turn that decimal into a percent, right? Using our conversions from last week. So please know that if you're given the part and the whole, then you're given a fraction. With a fraction, you can then convert it to anything you need. Okay, let's take a look at example 3. On an average Saturday, 15% of tickets sold are child tickets. If there were 460 tickets sold on Saturday, how many were sold to children? So whatever this event is, we're talking about tickets. We know the percent in this one. So we know that it's 15 out of 100 as that rate. And if there were 460 tickets sold, well, that is the other part we know. That's the total that were sold. What we don't know is the part that were sold as children tickets. Okay. So let's think of a strategy here. Now, I'm going to do cross multiplying and dividing to find the part because I don't have that fraction that I can convert to a percent. The percent I already know. So cross multiply. And 460 times 15, 6,900. And then I'm going to take that product and divide it by 100. And I know when I divide by a power of 10, I'm just moving the decimal point over to the left 2 place values. So that would mean 69 children tickets were sold. Okay, so I did the cross multiply and divide to find the part. Last example, the campus demographics include 480 female students. This represents 64% of the student body. How many students are enrolled? Enrolled would be the total or the whole. So what do I know? I know 64%. I know 480 is the part that are female students. And what I don't know is how many total students there are. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So 480 times 100 equals 48,000. And then I'm going to take that 48,000 and divide it by the other known, which is 64. And I get 750. And as always, I'm just going to make sure that my answer makes sense. And it does because, let me think how many students are enrolled. So it's 750 students. It makes sense because I know the whole should be more than the part. 480 are female. There should be more than that if we're talking about the whole student body. And then again, I'm just going to check to make sure I got this right, and I can use my conversions from last week to just make sure. If I know that 480 is the part and 750 is the total, I can just convert that fraction to a percent to make sure that it's 64%. So in my calculator, I'm doing 480 divided by 750. Yep, and I get the decimal, 64 hundredths. This is a good sign, which is also equivalent to 64%. So it just made sure. So 750 students. Okay, so your job this week is to practice this idea of percent proportions and solving the unknowns using it, but also remembering you have other strategies from the previous weeks to help you too. Okay, happy learning.